He takes out a mob of 100,000 zombies to save his friend's settlement. Hello all. This is Jacobson and this is a short retelling of the first and second episodes of the 6th season of the zombie series The Walking Dead. You can see the previous episodes at the links in the video description. Once this video gets 200 likes, I will release the next installment. Enjoy watching it.
Rick's group and the Alexandrians are standing next to a quarry filled with walkers. The exits from the quarry are blocked by several large trucks. While Rick is laying out a plan to drive away the walkers, the truck falls to the ground, freeing the walkers. Rick shouts to the group to put the plan into action. Diana sits by the fire and mourns Reggie. "You were wrong," she tells Father Gabriel, referring to his warning that the river group is dangerous. Abraham, meanwhile, carries Reggie's body in a tarp. He takes a sip of liquor and pours some on Reggie's corpse. Rosita is caring for Tara, who has just come out of a coma. Glenn and Nicholas enter, staggering after a fight in the woods. Glenn tells Maggie that they were attacked by walkers, misses the fact that Nicholas ambushed and tried to kill him. Carl is sitting next to Appreciates on the dock and she is holding his hand. Ron secretly watches what is happening. A drunk Abraham is sitting on the porch and playing with Reggie's wedding ring. He shows a peace sign when Sasha passes by. She responds with a gesture. Back to the present. Daryl on a motorcycle drives walkers into a quarry on a road studded with cars. In the past, Rick learns from Morgan about the W-Man and tells Daryl that they should strengthen security. Daryl doesn't agree with Rick's plan to stop recruiting new people into the community. In the present, Sasha and Abraham drive by car to a meeting place marked with red balloons. Daryl informs them by radio that he is leading the herd to their position. In the past, Rick visits Morgan in an unfinished house where he was detained after a fight with Pete. Rick apologizes for holding Morgan, but Morgan acknowledges the need for caution. While guarding the gate, Eugene lets in 3 Alexandrians: Heath, Scott and Annie, who have been making deliveries for the past few weeks. Rick lets Morgan go and tells him about the life of the Alexandrians. They find Gabriel and Tobin digging graves for Reggie and Pete. Rick refuses to allow Pete to be buried inside the community. Diana agrees and tells them to bury Pete a few miles down the road. Ron overhears the conversation. While Rick and Morgan load Pete's body into the car, Morgan remarks that Rick could have put Pete in jail instead of killing him. Rick objects that Pete was the killer, but Morgan objects, "I'm the killer, Rick, me and you too." In the present, Rick, Michonne and Morgan are at the meeting place with yellow balloons. Glenn tells them over the radio that he's almost there. In the past, Ron secretly follows Rick and Morgan to Pete's burial site, where they discover a nearby quarry filled with walkers. Ron is discovered when he is attacked by walkers, and Rick and Morgan have to rescue him. Rick and Morgan conclude that the quarry traps all walkers in the area, which is why Alexandria is so safe. Ron tries to leave, but Rick sternly warns him that he will die if he wanders here alone. In the present, Glenn, Nicholas and Heath arrive at a tractor shop located on the grazing walkers' route. Glenn comes up with a plan to kill the walkers inside so that their noise does not lead the oncoming herd astray. He tries to lure the walkers out through the front door, but finds that it is blocked. In the past, Rick is at a community meeting, offering to drive the walkers into the quarry until they break free and attack Alexandria. He's putting together a team of volunteers. Sasha says she will help Daryl lead the walkers away, and Abraham quickly offers to join her. Glenn will help the herd, but Maggie decides to stay in Alexandria to keep an eye on what is happening. Nicholas volunteered to help, despite Glenn's disapproving look. Rick meets with his team and develops a plan to drive the walkers west, away from Alexandria. Eugene suggests building a wall at a key intersection so that none of the walkers get separated and reach the community. Rick instructs Carter, who worked in the construction team of the wall, to erect it. In the present, Daryl leads the herd to a yellow rendezvous point at a key intersection. Walkers bang against a newly erected wall as they make their way to the turn. Rick, Michonne and Morgan are firing flares to delay walkers going west. In the past, Rick's group and the people of Alexandria are building a wall. Continuing their previous conversation, Daryl tells Rick that attracting new people is the only way to help the community thrive. In the present, Glenn develops a new plan to destroy walkers in the tractor shop. He tells Nicholas to stay away and contact Rick Parade if things go badly. In the past, setting up the wall, Maggie tells Tara that Nicholas is the cause of death, and he also tried to kill Glenn. When Tara objects to Glenn's decision to help Nicholas rather than punish him, Maggie points out that Glenn gave Tara a second chance after she opposed them on the governor's side. Glenn saves people, Maggie says. In the present, Glenn breaks a window in a store and uses Heath to shoot walkers when they go outside. Nicholas intervenes and helps kill the walkers. In the past, Carol delivers snacks to the wall. Morgan notices that Carol is constantly on the alert, and asks if she was a cop before, like Rick. Carol awkwardly thanks Morgan for the compliment. In the present, Abraham takes an unnecessary risk by jumping out of the car to kill a few walkers straggling from the herd. He jumps back in, cheered up. In the past, at the construction site of the wall, Rick advises Dina to allow firearms in the community. Walkers come out of the forest and approach a group of Alexandrians. Stunned, Carter asks for help. Rick prevents his men from intervening and urges the Alexandrians to defend themselves, but they are paralyzed by fear. Morgan jumps up and kills the walkers. In the armory, Eugene overhears Carter persuading Tobin, Olivia, Spencer and Francine to help him kill Rick. Carter spots Eugene and is about to shoot him when Rick, Daryl and Morgan enter. Rick snatches Carter's gun, but at the last moment decides not to execute him. In the present, after seeing that the plan worked, Carter makes amends to Rick. Then the team goes to manage the herd. The walker attacks Carter and bites him. Carter screams, distracting walkers from the road. In the past, Reed invites Morgan to live with them in the house. Morgan tells Rick that he is still the same Rick he met in the beginning. He knows this because Rick didn't kill Carter when he had the chance. Rick admits that he wanted to kill Carter, but stopped because he realized that he shouldn't do it. In the present, Rick kills Carter so that his screams don't attract walkers. Tobin drives the stray walkers back to the road. Rick asks Morgan to return to Alexandria and keep everything up to date. Daryl, Sasha and Abraham continue to lead the herds along the road. In the past, Rick runs into Jessie at a gun store. She condemns Rick for being rude to Ron in the woods. Rick offers to teach her Andrin how to defend herself, but Jessie says she has already asked Rosita to give her lessons in handling weapons. In the present, Michonne and Rick are watching the herd on the road. In the past, Reith leads everyone to the finish line, where he orders them to retreat while Daryl, Sasha and Abraham accompany the herd for another 20 miles along the road. In private, Abraham asks Sasha if she is doing this because she still wants to die. She smiles and says no. The group discovers that the tractor warehouse is full of walkers, and Rick plans to clean it up later. Glenn takes Nicholas aside and tells him that he is not ready to go on such an important mission, but Glenn promises that he will help him in the future. Lick finally leads the team into the quarry moments before the truck falls off the cliff. In the present, a herd of walkers reaches the finish line when a loud horn is suddenly heard in the distance. Attracted by the noise, half of the walkers separate from the herd. While the front part of the herd continues to follow Daryl, Sasha Abraham, the rear half of the herd turns off the road en masse. Their new course leads straight to Alexandria. Rick, Michonne and Morgan run home, and the camera turns back to show hundreds of walkers walking in the same direction as them. In the flashback, Nit's parents are killed by walkers when they try to start the car. Locked in a car, and Nit cries while walkers devour them outside. And Nit wanders through the forest alone, foraging and killing walkers. She repeatedly writes the letters JSS, which means just to survive somehow on bones, dirt and dusty windows. In the end, Nit stumbles upon the gates of Alexandria. She starts to leave, but when she sees Jason on her arm, she changes her mind and goes inside. In the present, Carol collects ingredients in the pantry with Olivia and Aaron. A little later, Carol sees Sam moping on her porch. She rudely tells him to come to terms with the death of his abusive father. You live with it, or it eats you up. Jesse is trying to cut Ron's hair. He blames her for Pete's death and is angry that she is friends with Rick. She defends Rick and reminds Ron that his father was a dangerous man. Ron angrily asks her if Rick is now her friend. She says yes, and Ron leaves. Maggie tells Dinah that they have vegetable seeds and suggests they start a garden when the expansion of the city is over. She encourages Diana, who is still in shock from the death of her son and husband, to lead the community again so that it becomes the place her husband wanted. In the infirmary, Eugene and Tara meet Denise, the new doctor. She explains that she studied surgery in medical school, but after a panic attack switched to psychiatry. Carl sees Ron and Nit sitting together on the street. Gabriel asks Carl to give him self-defense lessons, apologizing for his selfish behavior and saying that he is ready to start living in a new world. Carl ignores Gabriel at first, but then changes his mind and invites him to come to class with a machete. From her kitchen, Carol watches Shelley smoking outside. Suddenly a man runs up to her and stabs Shelley with a machete. She falls to the ground, but the man kills her by driving a machete into her skull. Maggie and Diana hear a noise inside the walls. Then Maggie sees the wolves breaking through the fence and entering the community. The guard is killed by an incendiary bomb and falls, burning to the ground, to Diana's shock and horror. Back in Alexandria, Carol tells Carl to stay at home and guard Judith. At home, Jesse and Sam hear the sound of a broken window and hide in the closet upstairs. While terror reigns in the streets, Enid goes to Carl's house to say goodbye to him before leaving the community. But Carl convinces her to stay and help protect Judith. Carol watches as wolves take prisoners in chains, and one wolf draws the letter W in blood on his forehead. She tries to save Aaron from the wolf, but comes too late and kills the attacker after he cuts Aaron's stomach with his weapon. Carol holds Aaron and silences her so as not to alert the other wolves, and then stabs her neighbor in the back of the head with a knife to end her torment. From the observation tower, Spencer tries to shoot several members of the wolves, one of whom carves the letter W on the forehead of a dead Alexandrian, but he manages to kill only one of them. Spencer notices a truck speeding towards the main gate. Spencer shoots the truck driver, and he crashes into the wall, causing a horn, the same horn that attracted the herd of those walkers. Spencer tries to get out of the observation tower to stop the horn, but the door is blocked. One of the Alexandrians, Holly, is urgently sent to the infirmary after being rescued from the wolf by Rosita and Aaron. Let him not ask Tara to stay and stand guard. Spencer finally gets to the truck, but hesitates when he finds a walker inside. Morgan arrives just in time to kill the walker and stop the doom. Sensing Spencer's fear, Morgan orders him to hide in the truck. Inside the walls, Morgan encounters a wolf who is holding his staff in his hands. The wolf offers him to choose fast or slow with an axe in his hands, but Morgan orders him to leave. The wolf shrugs and decides that it will be slow. Carol, the disguised ghost who killed Aaron, sweeps past and stabs Morgan's opponent before the fight begins. Morgan angrily tells her that they don't have to kill people and that he could just knock him out. Of course they should, she snaps and orders him to help her guard the armory. Diana decides to stay behind the walls, as she has no fighting skills. Maggie asks Spencer to ensure Dinah's safety in the truck. In a panic, Denise discovers that Holly is bleeding internally. Tara and Eugene convince her to overcome her fear and operate on Holly. Ron hides behind a tree when the sounds of anarchy are heard among the residents. The wolf notices Ron and starts chasing him with a knife in his hand. Before he can catch up with Ron, Carl shoots the wolf in the leg. Carl is about to finish the job, but the wolf tearfully begs to save his life and help with his leg. Carl weakens his guard, and the wolf viciously grabs him by the barrel of the gun. After a brief struggle, Carl manages to shoot him in the head and ask Ron to follow him into the house. But Ron sees Enid standing in the doorway and runs away. Jessie hears Ron coming home. She comes out of the closet to warn Ron. But when she goes downstairs, a female wolf attacks her and knocks the gun out of her hands. Jessie grabs a pair of scissors and stabs the woman several times in the chest, and Ron looks at it, after which he stabs her in the head to prevent her from reviving. On the way to the armory, Morgan leaves Carol to save Gabriel from the wolf, and he leaves the life of the attacker. In the armory, Carol loads a bag with weapons. She shows Olivia how to use it and instructs her to shoot if someone comes through the door. Gabriel helps Morgan tie up the wolf. The wolf wakes up and begins to explain that his group is freeing them from the trap and that people no longer belong here. But to Morgan's horror, Carol shoots the prisoner and starts handing out weapons. Morgan gives his gun to Gabriel. Meanwhile, Rosita and Aaron kill the wolves that have looted the house. Morgan meets a group of wolves near the main gate and, taking them at gunpoint, orders them to leave. One of the wolves recognizes Morgan. "If you continue to choose this life, you will die," he says. "We didn't choose," the wolf answers. The wolves run away, but not before the blonde man pulls out a gun on his way out. Morgan closes the gate behind them. When the wolves are defeated, Carol stands over Mrs. Nadermeyer's body and cries. Shaken, Aaron walks down a street littered with corpses. He stabs one of them in the head with a knife so that he does not come to life, and notices that he has a backpack that he has lost. Aaron finds photos of Alexandria in it and realizes with horror that this is how the wolves found the community. In the infirmary, Holly dies on the operating table. Denise asks them to be alone. Tara reminds her to destroy Holly's brain. Carl finds a farewell note from Enid. "Just survive somehow," it says. At the house, Morgan meets another wolf, whom he met in the woods near Alexandria. The wolf taunts Morgan for not killing him when he had the chance. They fight, and then Morgan knocks him unconscious. Later, Morgan and Carol walk at opposite ends of one of the corpse-strewn streets of Alexandria, refusing to recognize each other.